Okay, so up next, our next speaker, I guess really probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. Australian touring and festival promotion has a really long and proud history, but AJ Maddah represents the new blood in the big leagues. As the CEO of Soundwave Festival, AJ saw the loyalty of metal and hardcore rock fans and was smart enough to curate a huge touring festival that catered to that audience. He took an underground movement and brought it to a mainstream audience without losing credibility in the process, which is a real feat for any musician to do, let alone a promoter. So Soundwave has been a regular sellout event. I'm sure many of you have attended. It's featured acts like Metallica, 30 Seconds to Mars, Parkway Drive, Faith No More. The list goes on. AJ has also remained committed to reaching an all-ages audience across the country, and he's extended that further by becoming involved in the Warped Tour, Big Day Out, and his Harvest Festival. His 40,000 Twitter followers agree that AJ's influence has also seen him named the most powerful person in the Australian music industry. And today, AJ is going to be addressing an important topic, I think, which is, does anybody give a shit about young people? I personally can't wait, and I'm sure you can't either. So please welcome to the stage, AJ Maddah.
Hello? Hello? Yep. I really shouldn't have been in the room for that introduction. I really don't need that kind of pressure. But look, thanks everyone for coming. Sadly, we're out of time, so thank you very much. My parking meter is about to run out, and these guys are too cheap to get me some parking. So we'll keep this brief. Basically, I'd like to come on here and say that, people give a shit about young people, but they don't. But I guess they never have. So it's one of those things where, young people don't have a vote. Young people don't really have a voice. And the minute they turn 18, they cross over to the other side, and then they hate young people. So, well, it's true. It's true. Like the most people that whinge about all ages shows are 18-year-olds. We've got an idea now. We don't want to hang out with those kids, which is a bit of a bummer. But look, being unprepared as I am on the way here, I was jotting down some notes in my BlackBerry. And I think the first thing that I wanted to talk about is why I don't have a puppy. The reason I don't have a puppy is because I'm realistic enough to know that as enthusiastic as I am, and yes, I will clean up after it, yes, I will feed it, the fucking thing will die in an ocean of its own shit in about a week. And that's why I don't have a puppy. And sadly, that's the reason why maybe a lot of people out there shouldn't be having kids. Because as soon as the new baby smell wears off, they want to go back to their pre-baby life of, going out on weekends or, having, I guess, more of a social life than you should responsibly have as a parent. That just gets amplified, with the second or third kid as the novelty kind of wears off. And that's a theme that kind of continues, for it being tough for kids going forward from there. At the moment, we've got a situation where I guess parents and society in general is overcompensating for the fact that they're not giving the kids proper nurture and a proper upbringing, and they overcompensate that by kind of psychological bribery, by telling every kid, you're special, I was at a friend's house who is responsible enough to have kids. I'm amazed they haven't taken them away yet. But I was at their house, and their kid is watching this thing called Dora the Explorer, right? About 4 minutes of this just fucking did my head in. So there is Dora the Explorer and some monkey and something else, and they're singing this song that says, everybody's special. Well, guess fucking what? Is everybody special? Then they're not special anymore. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like they feed, so instead of giving kids proper care and looking after them and making sure that they have a proper upbringing and that kids can be kids. They can actually go out there and take some kiddie risks and play on monkey bars and do all the things that, you know, most of what people my age and even younger did, you know, when they were kids. They just tell them, you're really special, put them in cotton wool, don't have them, you know, go out there, don't have them have any fun. I mean, look, you know, all of us, including, you know, the Commissioner of Police or the Prime Minister or whomever, at some point, well, maybe not the Prime Minister, I'm not quite sure if he's human, but everybody else, you know, goes out there at 14 or 15 and does all the silly things, you know, tries smoking a cigarette and cough their guts out, or, you know, steals a bit of vodka from his dad's vodka bottle that's in the freezer and then fills it up with water, and then the water will freeze and the vodka will freeze and the dad will belt the shit out of him. Anyway, I digress. But, you know, we've all, you know, everybody's done those things, but now we want to deprive kids from having experiences. We want to deprive kids from having fun. I mean, when I was 14, me and another friend of mine who were 14 went to the Newcastle Earthquake concert by ourselves. And we might have sadly had some Moselle wine out of a cask before we got there. But anyway, you know, we went and did that. And if a parent did that, now they'd probably get locked if they let their kid go out, you know, and travel to, I suppose Newcastle almost counts as a different city, to see a gig and come back at 6 o'clock in the morning, worse for wear, they'd probably get locked up. You know, so, but that doesn't mean that they care more for kids. It means they care less for kids and they just want to make things convenient. It's more convenient if little Johnny never leaves the house than if little Johnny leaves the house and scrapes his knee. You know, so don't think that, you know, all of these things, you know, the government's talking about turning the drinking age to 21. They're not doing that for you. They're doing that for them. They're not doing that because they think, oh, it'll be good for an 18 to 21-year-old, you know, not to drink. They just don't want to deal with any potential hassles of maybe 0.1% of those kids getting into some kind of trouble or causing some kind of trouble. You know? And that is probably crueler than letting kids do whatever the hell they want. So essentially, we're now at a point where they're turning our ability to do all ages shows, they're almost extorting us out of it. Like every year, they're trying to make things more difficult. Every year, they're trying to put more hurdles in front of us. And they're quite open about it. You know, we want you to turn your shows into over 18 shows. And they don't realize that, you know, and I fight for it because I remember sitting out the back of venues that I couldn't get into as a kid, like with my ear to the wall, trying to listen to my favourite band. You know, I would travel from Castle Hill, which is in the northwestern suburbs, to Coogee, which involved 3 buses and 2 trains. And like it was a 5-hour just journey of hell to get from the western suburbs to Coogee Beach, and go to Salinas knowing that I couldn't even get in. You know, and being out the back with my ear to the wall, you know, listening to a band that I loved play, and I couldn't get in there. Then eventually I wised up and got some fake ID. But anyway, but it's just cruel to keep kids out of, you know, some people might take exception to me calling, you know, rock music or metal or punk music art, but it's cruel to keep kids away from what inspires them. And I still remember those hell journeys on the many buses and trains to get to, you know, just so that I could maybe get a glimpse of the band, or maybe, you know, be able to listen to the songs outside with my ear to the wall, or to, you know, to the emergency exits. So I still do try my best to make the shows accessible for all ages. The other thing is that if we don't do that, then chances are that those kids will get into dance music and incur brain damage. So, you know, I feel it's part of our overall responsibility, you know, to let kids, if they want to listen to rock music, to listen to rock music. If, you know, if they want to interact, they can interact. I mean, one of the most satisfying things from Soundwave was in 2008 when I found out that there were all these Soundwave clubs, like kids that met each other at Soundwave, that would then have annual picnics. The fuckers never invited me, but that's okay. I wouldn't have gone anyway. But look, I was really proud to find out that this was happening. It was a social movement. It was a community. And these kids were coming together, and whether they listened to punk music or metal music or what have you, or like sad pandas listening to emo and blah, 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 you know, regardless of all that, they were a community and they were together, and everybody, you know, I walk around Soundwave and everybody helps each other regardless of whether they're punk, metal, emo, rock, whatever. So in a way, I guess I've personally benefited from my kids being under this siege mentality, which has kind of brought us together and brought us into a more cohesive unit. But all in all, I can see that it's probably tougher now to be a kid and enjoy being a kid than ever before. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane, the restrictions that they put on everybody at the moment. And, you know, every time there is, obviously in mine, I think there is a mass press hysteria. You know, look, obviously it's a horrible tragedy when some drunken fuckwit punches somebody else in the head and you know, it results in bad injury or death. But as with, let's say, you know, the situation in Soundwave in Melbourne, where they put 55 or 60,000 people in cages on the off chance that little Johnny, someone might pass little Johnny a sip of beer, that collective punishment is ridiculous. And that collective punishment for kids is ridiculous. We all look, every single one of us know a fuckwit in our life. And I mean, I'm hoping that that fuckwit in your life isn't me. But, you know, we all know someone who's just a turd. Like, let's face it, right? And there is always that one person that's gonna fuck it up for everybody. But it's not fair to let that one aggressive idiot that's gonna get drunk and punch somebody or do something ridiculous to restrict everybody else who's responsible and who's sensible and who's not a fucking moron from being out there and being able to enjoy life and being able to do what young people are supposed to do, which I guess is to have a little bit of adventure. You know, if we lock up all of our kids in cotton buds and not let them go out and not let them interact and not let them, you know, be in society at large, they're going to grow up with not only no sense of adventure, but also they're going to grow up having faced no resistance. And they become 18 or 20 or however the fuck you people are before you leave the house. I guess 30 now. You know, you get to that age where you have to leave mommy and daddy and you go out there and at the first sign of trouble you fall apart. Or you go out there, you've never been let out, you haven't had to deal with, you know, even the minimum amount of bullying or minimum amount of reality or what have you, and you go out there and straight away you hit a hurdle and you go one of two ways. Either, as I said, you fall apart, or you just explode in a ball of anger. I mean, it's really sad. Recently, there was another shooting at a college in the US by some 23-year-old wanker in a 5 Series BMW that mummy and daddy bought him. And he went on a killing rampage because he was a virgin. He literally went on a killing rampage because nobody would fuck him. Right? Now, for me and my generation, nobody fucking us was just a sad fact of life. You know, we just dealt with it. But, you know, when you've been kept away from society, you're kept, you know, in your bedroom, you're kept in cotton wool, told how special you are, and you go out there and you get rejected, this kind of shit happens. So it's not only a responsibility to kids to allow them to have experiences and to go out there and, you know, to pursue what they like to do. It's also a responsibility to society for our next generation. So, you know, sadly, still nobody gives a shit about kids. I'll give you two examples, both involving Western Australia. We had I remember for the 2005 Soundwave in Western Australia. We had a meeting with the constabulary, and this woman sergeant goes, we need you to build a police compound at your show. Now, let's remember, this is a show for 2,500 kids. We want you to build this police compound at your show, which was pretty much bigger than the show. And we want you to fence it, and we want you to put security guards on it. So you want us to put security guards at the front of the police compound. What the fuck does that say about the police? And then she goes, oh, and the fence needs to be hessianed. And I said to her, why do you need us to put hessian bags on the fence? It's going on in case we have to rough up some kids, we don't want their friends to see it. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? First of all, how dare you say you want to rough up my, in case you might rough up my kids. And I said, what reason would you have, to rough up my kids? And she goes, oh, it's in order to avoid, any stabbings or any blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, lady, I don't know what the kids in your family are like, but I've been doing this for a long time, and our kids don't behave that way. And I was thinking to myself, you're in a position of care, and this is what you think for kids. You're supposed to be there out of a duty of care, to look after kids, and this is your primary concern. I also remember having a talk to one of the politicians there and pointing out to them that, look, you're making it hell for us. This is more recently. You're making it hell for us to put on shows for underage kids. And even for young kids, you're making it difficult for people that are 18 to 25, or people that are 15 to 25. And he turned around and said to me, off the record, we don't give a fuck about those people. Let them leave. They'll go somewhere else. They'll go to another state. And then later, when they have money and a family, they'll move back. Believe me, for every 2 people that are forthright enough to say shit like that, there is hundreds and thousands that don't, but thinking that. So I guess that kind of shocked me out of my, utopian worldview or some such. Sadly, I've got no solution. I don't know what to tell you. I guess all I can say is if you were under 18 or under 21, as the case may be soon enough, and you hated the way you were treated and you hated what happened to you, don't forget that the minute you turn 18 and go, fuck those guys. Carry that with you and do something for your younger brothers or sisters or cousins or nephews or whomever's. I guess that's about it on this topic. If anyone has any questions about this or anything else. Hello.
I was just wondering, you're obviously very active on social media, like your Twitter account. I was wondering, what your reasoning or motivation is behind being so active, because you're a bit controversial sometimes, but you do always reply to quite a few people.
Yeah.
What motivates you to do that?
Mainly because I don't have any friends. And that's kind of, sadly enough, that's my social life. So it also helps, saves me from having a therapist. No, seriously, look, I was an inquisitive kid and I had a lot of questions, and I guess, you never had access to people like you do now, where basically anybody can reach anybody via social media. So, I don't mind passing some of that knowledge on or helping people if they're genuine and they need help, or if they have any questions. Even if it's just that they're curious about something. But more than that, I guess from a more selfish point of view, I get as much as I give on social media in terms of, probably the last 20 great bands that I discovered was via kids on social media going, hey, check this out. So it's as much a learning tool as a teaching tool. And, it's kind of also good fun at times, yeah.
Hey, AJ.
Hey!
Hey.
What's up?
Quick question, just in regards to how much more difficult does it become when you're dealing with acts that can be notorious for their attitudes towards authority or Because like you've dealt with even, yeah, like Die Artist Murder and even like your bigger acts before you did Soundwave.
But I got to tell you, those guys are. I love those guys. You know,
Yeah.
but fuck, they did my head in. Yeah, I wish there had been a TV crew to tape the conversation in my office after that all that went down. Was that in Sydney? Or was that in Brisbane?
Brisbane.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah, it could have easily been a comedy skit, but look, they're really good guys. They're genuine guys. They just don't have a great deal of forward thinking about what might happen next, I guess. But look, part of rock and roll is that, you know, kind of being a bit anti-authoritarian, you know, and if you don't have that spark, I don't think you're going to have, you know, what it takes. You know, then I guess you'll be Katy Perry or whatever. I don't fucking know. So look, it's part of rock and roll, but I think also part of punk rock ethos or metal ethos or any kind of rock is the respect for your fans. And as Rob Halford said when he was put on trial when some kids, you know, killed themselves, and people were saying it was because of a Judas Priest album. He said, if we were going to put subliminal messages on our albums, it would be buy more albums. It wouldn't be go kill yourself, because it, you know, it's not going to do us much good if all our fans go kill themselves. It's kind of the same thing, that while, you know, it's good to have, you know, not submit to authority, not submit to everything that you're told, or, you know, all the do's and don'ts, you have to think of that within the parameters of the fact that one of your fans could end up in a wheelchair for life, or, you know, or die. And sadly, those kinds of things have happened at rock shows before. So, you know, I've never cared about anybody moshing or doing the wall of death, blah, blah, blah. For insurance purposes, we have to put signs up saying, don't fucking do it. But there comes a point where you are putting your fans at risk. And if you're happy to have one of your fans end up, you know, with a broken neck, just so you can fucking feel cool and rebellious for 5 minutes, then you're a dick. But other than that, anything goes. Anybody else?
Do you find that, like, do many over 18s venues, do they, like, have all, like, can, if you're in a band, for an example, and you're underage band, will they necessarily let you in? Like, is an over 18s
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Or?
Yeah, no, look, it's actually, as much as our laws are shit, that's one good thing, that if you're under 18 but you're part of the entertainment on stage and you have a responsible adult or guardian, you're allowed in the venue, which is how Silverchair did a lot of their shows when they were 14, 15. So yeah, that's not an issue. It's not necessarily, you know, something that the licensee or the venue might particularly want to deal with, but if you're good enough, then people will put up with it. Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Stand up. Okay.
So in the process of in event producing that you do, Soundwave, Big Day Out, what's the sort of the biggest sort of challenges and troubles that you face in putting all that together?
God, where do I begin? Look, there's logistical challenges, and you meet them, you know, with hard work and being organized, or hiring other people that work hard and are organized. You know, there is obviously challenges with bookings, and then you do what you have to do, even if it involves flying to Holland, you know, running around in the middle of a cow paddock and begging Rancid to come to Australia. You know, then you do that. The one that does my head in is when you deal with idiots. Idiocy is because that's just pointless. You know, if you have a challenge that involves, you know, trucking or flights or, you know, staging or, you know, venue set layout, etc., then you know that that's worth, you know, fighting the fight or, you know, doing the hard work to make that happen. But when you've got idiots, it becomes really, really difficult because it's just you're wasting your time. And I don't want to pinpoint anyone in any particular bureaucracy, but it's mainly bureaucratic, where they also don't think about the next 5 steps of what that entails. For example, when the venue in Sydney tried to make us make the gig 15 plus the other year, and they were saying basically, look, you know, if they have to bring ID to prove they're 15. It's like the state doesn't issue any ID that proves you're 15. You know, you want them to bring a bus pass? Like, what the fuck do you want them to bring to prove they're 15? So then they go, okay, then in that case, they need to bring, a parent needs to come with them, and they need to come and tell us that they're 15. The parent needs to show their ID and vouch for them that they're 15. And I'm going, okay, then how does that process work? Well, they come in, they give us a driver's license, they fill out a form, we get a photocopy of their driver's license, we give it back to them. It's like, okay, so we've got 75,000 people coming to the show this year. Of those, roughly 20,000 are under 18. So I actually went to this meeting with an example form, my driver's license, set up a desk with a photocopier, with an idiot sitting behind the desk, which would have probably still been smarter than the person they would have put behind it. And we did this exercise to show how many people they could process per minute. And it was basically 1 person per 2 minutes of this system that they wanted to put in place, which meant 30 kids per station per hour. That's 6,000 hours of processing. I'm like, 600 hours of processing rather. I'm like, okay, so you need to get, in order to get people in within an hour of lining up, so that they're not missing the day, they're not missing the bands, blah, 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 and, you know, we don't have a riot outside, you're going to need to set up 600 photocopiers and 600 desks and 600 fucking people. But, you know, it took, even after that, it took 2 weeks to talk them out of it. And that's what kills me. You know, it's not the real work, it's the time wasters and fucktards. That's kind of, for me, the most difficult thing to deal with.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, how you going? I just have a question in relation to, you know, we're all young and stuff. So as a young person, I was just wanting to know, I guess on behalf of everyone, I guess, how valuable do you think we are in actual terms of a business sense? Like, I know we're great for fans and to go out to shows and stuff, but I guess how seriously do you think we get taken if we're approaching big businesses and big events to actually work for them and stuff? Do you think there's a real place of, do you think that's really encouraged, I guess?
Look, if you're a good business, you're always on the lookout for good people. And, you know, I'd certainly take the fans seriously on a personal level and, you know, on a, you know, I guess on a business level. And everybody that works in my office, except for Chris O'Brien, our general manager, whom I used to pay $7 an hour to hand out handbills in Melbourne, he's the only one that started getting paid. Everybody else that works for us full time now was a volunteer. So, you know, whether it was Troy who volunteered to help out with the, you know, with our website, and now he's kind of our webmaster and runs all of our social media. all of them started as volunteers, and they were the volunteers that really kind of distinguished themselves. I almost say distinguished themselves, you know. So no, we take it very seriously, and at the end of the day, you know, when any business, my feeling is any business is not limited by, you know, it's not limited by finance, it's not limited by the market size. I think businesses are limited by the human capital. And heck, if there is any good people out there, we'd love to have them.
Hi.
Hello.
So a lot of what you were talking about was kind of the monopolization of the music industry by the alcohol industry. And,
Sorry, who? What?
So you're talking about kind of the monopolization of the music industry
I
by
was?
the alcohol industry. So
No,
it's kind of...
I wasn't actually, but
No,
go
don't
ahead.
you think?
No.
Oh, well, that's how I kind of took it, because a lot of what...
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
No.
No, so like a lot of the venues and promoters that put on all ages shows don't do it because it's more profitable to put on an over 18 show.
Hold on. Don't ever use the word profitable and all ages shows in the same sentence.
Yeah, then
Because
they're
that's
not.
just fucking wrong.
Yeah.
What it is you go into a venue and you can do, first of all, don't ever forget that the venues have massive overheads, right? From the douchebag staff to the security to, you know, the upkeep of the venue to the servicing of the equipment, etc., the land tax, all the government bullshit. So it's not cheap to operate a venue. Quite often, their only real source of income is the bar. And that's not profit, that's gross revenue out of which they have to pay all those costs. So if they don't have that bar revenue, they have to generate the revenue from somewhere else. Essentially, they need to charge the promoter for it. For example, to do a show at the Tivoli in Brisbane, do an all-ages show, is $14,000 plus security, plus all costs, right? So that essentially is replacing any gross revenue they would have had from the bar. So for me to do an all-ages show at the Tivoli, you know, and don't forget, when you look at a gross ticket price, that is far more than what the promoter gets to pay expenses out of. So let's say if a net ticket price is $40, then it becomes $44 with GST. Then there is normally about $7 worth of bullshit that the ticketing agencies put on. So then you're looking at a $51 ticket. So let's say that you have a $40 gross ticket. You have to be sure that 350 kids are going to turn up just to pay for that additional expense of hiring the venue. That's not even taken into account that some people won't come to the show because it's an alcohol-free, unlicensed show. So what you need to do is, as much as I go in and, you know, I fight the venues and these charges, etc., I have to be realistic enough to know that, you know, they also need revenues to pay their expenses, otherwise they'll cease to exist.
What my actual real question was, is there other ways to find revenue from all ages audiences?
Yeah, we can ask all the kids to nick some money from their parents.
Yeah, well, but I mean...
Or if you're a big kinky, just ask them to bring their mom's underpants or something. I don't know where you think that revenue is going to come from, because there isn't much in the way of sponsorship aimed towards under 18s, and even if it was, the amount would be pretty minimal. If you have any ideas, I'd love to hear them on that front. No, we just need to, you know, grin and bear it and take the risk that, you know, 300 kids will turn up so that you can make up that $14,000 venue hire or what have you. But more important than that, the best way to do it is to actually, you know, ask or beg governments to be sensible enough, you know, for you to be able to do the very same thing that happens at the footy. or the very same things that happen, by having an all ages environment where there is also bars. So the venue can recoup some money and we can still have the kids in the venue, So I don't know why they can make that exception at the cricket, they can make that exception at the football, they can make that exception at any venue with a Crown license, like the Entertainment Centre or the Horton Pavilion, etc. But they can't do it at a meaningful level for kids. So that they can go to venues and do that. I mean, look, the Metro is set up very nicely, as you would know. The Enmore is set up very nicely, but that's taken some real investment and real hard work by Bill and Naelia to get them to that point. At Century Venues where you work. And not everybody has the expertise that they have or the financial means that they have to be able to set up venues like that. So, not only, just one more thing about the all ages shows, on top of that, you have to have 1 per 100 people that you have capacity for in user-paced police, who charge you $140 an hour. So in other words, New South Wales Police can come in and tell you how many people they're sending to your all ages show and what they're charging you per hour, and you don't have a choice. You just know, you don't have any say in the matter. So on top of the $14,000 venue hire or whatever the venue hire is, then you have 10 people in uniform that are charging you $140 an hour. So that, times 4 or 5 hours of operation is another $6,000 or $7,000. So what we need to do is, to say that we're not holding an all-in brawl with like 1,400 people, it's a gig. Maybe 2 or 3 police officers present can deal with any problems that, a bunch of 14-year-olds watching, a punk rock band could possibly cause. So I think it's more at a governmental level and more at a regulatory level.
Front. Got a mic down here.
Yes.
Hey, I'm just curious to know, when you're working on festivals such as Soundwave and Big Day Out and all that,
Yep.
when you're working behind the scenes with bands, what sort of conduct do you expect from those bands, and what can other bands aspire to if they want to reach a more professional level in terms of...
Well, it's like this. Look, I've dealt with a lot of criticism about, not having, I guess not even up and coming bands, but, bands that formed 3 weeks ago in their garage at Soundwave. And part of the reason is that we want bands to have a certain level of experience, so that they do know how to, as you said, how to conduct themselves behind the scenes. In my time, I've had so many bands treat it like, it's their one big chance to party. And I won't go into details of who they were, or maybe I will. But we've had so many incidents of idiots, swapping passes and bringing their dickhead mates backstage, then said dickhead mates getting drunk and thrashing stuff. I've had bands steal other bands' riders. I've had the drummer from one Australian band wanting to kill the guitarist from one of the headline bands because his girlfriend was trying to blow him. He wasn't even participating in it. But anyway, it's just about being able to control your band and control your environment. And know that, okay, bands that, look, I had Parkway Drive in 2007 when they were a new band. And they were just fucking amazing in every sense. I mean, not only did they bring the show and they were unbelievable and everyone that was watching would go, fuck, that band's going somewhere. They were just impeccable backstage. Bands like Amity Affliction can party harder than just about fucking anybody, would drink anybody under the table, but they have the know to be professional when things are at a professional level. And that's what it's about. And this is why I like a band to have done a certain amount of touring and to have done a few supports, just so that they can learn the parameters of interaction with headline bands and the parameters of behavior in a backstage setting before we'll have them at Soundwave, or even Big Day Out, as the case might be.
Anyone else? Yep.
Hey, AJ.
Yeah, hello. Hey, how you going?
Good setup.
Oh, okay. All right. First question's regarding specifically about the closure of the Palace Theatre. I know there's a lot of buzz around
fuck.
that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Regarding that, how badly is that going to affect the ability to hold all ages shows in Melbourne? Are there any workaways around it?
It doesn't affect the all ages shows. Well, not that you can have all ages shows in Victoria. Okay, for anyone that doesn't know the Victorian system, Victorian being the operative word, it's just fucking moronic. Basically, there are no all ages shows. There are under 18 shows or over 18 shows. To go to an under 18 show, you have to prove you're under 18. Now, I have no idea why the law is this, but I imagine somewhere in the 70s, someone went to a blue light disco and fiddled with some kid. You know, and as it's like 40 years of punishment for fucking the masses afterwards. The Palace Theatre doesn't affect the all ages because they wouldn't do all ages shows, or they wouldn't do under 18 shows. What it does affect is that affects the entire music industry in Australia. You've got the so-called enlightened city of Melbourne, the fucking shining beacon, light on the hill, whatever the fuck they think they are. Victorians are really uppity. Anyway, and they don't have a 2,000 capacity venue. So you're going from Billboard, which is 1,100, to the Forum, which is 1,400, and then it jumps from there to Festival Hall, which is 5,000 people. And there is no gap in between. And that gap makes it very difficult for not just touring bands, but Australian bands that want to make that jump from club level to arena level or to 5,000 capacity level. There is no step in between. So it really is probably one of the most damaging things that have happened. Because there used to be 3 2,000 capacity venues in Melbourne 4 years ago. You had the original Palace in St Kilda. You had some wanky dance venue in the city. I think it's called HQ. And then you had the Metro, which then became the Palace, and now you have none. Next.
Festivals splitting into all ages under 18, like Future Music and Good Life, or whatever they call it.
That might work for some festivals, but it doesn't work for all festivals. It certainly wouldn't work for a Big Data or a Soundwave, because part of our programming is for younger people and for younger kids, and then part of the programming isn't for younger kids, and it's an overall package, and it wouldn't work if we split it up.
Yep.
Hi, as a punter, you can either go to like Soundwave and Big Day Out and Falls and Laneway over your summer, or you can spend that 3 months, save your dollars and go overseas.
Yep.
And it's a very real decision for people like me who don't make that much money bartending.
Yep.
What are Australian festivals doing to keep people going to them, I guess, when there is a real competition of just heading overseas to the big ones?
I guess we can move them to Europe. Look, we're doing the best that we can with the fact that everything costs so much more to do here than it does over there. I mean, for a start, the bands are there, they're touring in buses. To bring bands and massive amounts of production and whatever here, we don't have, in the US, you've got your $6 an hour Mexicans, I guess, doing the whatever the fuck, and being exploited over there for that amount of money, huh? No, I don't see it adapting at all. Simply because our costs aren't going to go down. When I'm paying, as I was paying in Perth, $64 an hour for security. When we're paying, $2 million worth of trucking and freight to get gear over here and get around the country, it becomes really, really difficult to, I guess, to change the structure of things here. We're kind of locked in a structure. We're locked in, have you been to many overseas festivals? Which ones have you been to? That's a good one. So what you're saying is that it's cheaper for you to fly overseas and spend money on accommodation and go to exit and blah, blah, blah. Yep. Yeah. Well, it's not a bad option, but as I said, it makes it, the circumstances here and the cost of things here are infinitely higher than they are overseas. whether it's from a labour point of view. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's a bad thing that we pay people properly here, but they've got that advantage of lower labour costs that we don't. They've got that advantage of having 40 staging companies in Europe that are competing for your business, as opposed to the one guy who's dick, I've got to suck here to get my stages. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's the availability of infrastructure and the competition between suppliers, lower labour costs, lower band costs, because they don't have to fly 2 days, back and forth to get here. You don't have the freight. The bands there, you don't have to accommodate them when they come to your festival. The band deliver themselves because they're sleeping on a tour bus. Do you know what I'm saying? Every band here, it costs, about $4,500 in government fees to get visas. You get one visa for Europe and one visa for the US, it costs you $200. So because of those things, the costs are always going to be high here. Yep. Are we done? Okay. Thank you.
Big round of applause to AJ. Thank you. No worries. Thank you. Thank you for being so generous with your time.